She laughed as if I never existed. Not the kind of polite, office party chuckle she gave me when we used to host people. No, this was different. It was full, open, free. The kind of laugh that said, "You were never enough." I stood across the room with her ring in my pocket, the same pocket I used to keep surprise notes for her in. Now it held a different kind of surprise. One she wasn't expecting, not tonight, not ever. They were seated at the corner booth beneath the chandelier she once said reminded her of her grandmother's house. Funny how nostalgia disappears when lust takes its place. He poured her another glass, touched her hand, said something that made her tilt her head back and close her eyes. Like that moment was sacred. I walked toward them slowly. No one noticed me yet. Not the host. Not the waiters. Not the couple 2 seats down whispering about someone else's scandal. No one noticed me, except her. Just as I reached the table, her face froze for a second. Not guilt, just surprise. Like someone who accidentally left a window open and a cold wind had blown in. I didn't say a word. I placed the ring on the table between her untouched bread plate and the man's wristwatch. And then I whispered, just 2 words. Nice rehearsal. Because the truth is, this wasn't a party. It was a rehearsal dinner. Ours. And the man sitting across from her was the best man. Or at least, he was supposed to be. Until now. At first, no one moved. The ring just sat there on the table like a ticking clock, daring someone to break the silence. She stared at it with a confused smile, that fake, strained kind of smile people use when they think they're being pranked on camera. Her lover, the best man, gave me a half nod, clearly still trying to understand what I meant by nice rehearsal. It didn't click for him yet, but it clicked for her. Oh, it did. Because in that tiny ring box, under the diamond she once said was too small to show her friends, was a second item, a folded copy of our venue cancellation receipt, dated 2 hours before the dinner, signed by me, with a note scribbled in Sharpie. Congratulations to the new couple. That's when her smile collapsed. She reached out as if to stop me, mouth opening like she had a sentence ready. Maybe an excuse. Maybe a lie. Maybe one of those panicked, breathy, "this isn't what it looks like" speeches they always give in bad movies. But she never got the chance, because I turned around and walked. Slowly, deliberately, past the stunned caterers, past her sister, who was holding champagne and looked like she had just witnessed a murder, past the projector they were going to use for our memory slideshow. All of it. I walked through it like a man moving through the ashes of his own wedding. I got halfway to the exit before I heard her heels scraping against the hardwood. She followed me, of course. Not because she wanted me. No, she was worried about the fallout. The shame. The image. She'd spent so long curating this polished version of us online. Power couple Wednesdays, yoga and finance Fridays, his and her hustle goals. It was all for show, and I had just ripped the curtain clean off. "Wait, can we just talk?" she said, grabbing my sleeve. Her voice wasn't soft. It was tight, controlled, like she still thought she had leverage. I turned to face her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. "You lied to me in the house we built together," I said quietly, trying not to lose it in front of strangers. "You brought him into it. And then you had the nerve to sit here laughing while I still had the tuxedo invoice sitting in my inbox." "It didn't mean anything," she said too quickly, and that hurt more than if she'd said it did. Didn't mean anything? So what was it? A warm-up act before the vows? A mistake on the eve of our commitment? A fling with the guy who was supposed to stand behind me at the altar? I looked her in the eyes and said the most painful thing I've ever had to say to anyone. "I was willing to spend the rest of my life with you. But now, I realize I was the only one who ever meant it." And then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't throw a drink. I just left her standing there between the cake she ordered and the man she chose. But the real fallout hadn't even started yet. Because what neither of them knew, what nobody in that room knew, was that I had quietly recorded their entire conversation at the hotel 2 nights before. I didn't go looking for proof. It landed in my lap. And by the time the sun came up the next morning, everyone in our lives would hear exactly what she said about me when she thought I'd never know. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of sadness. No, that would come later. What kept me up was the cold rage. The kind that crawls into your chest and settles there like a second heartbeat. I kept hearing her voice from that hotel room 2 nights before. I hadn't meant to record it. I just left my phone in the car by accident when I picked her up from that so-called private yoga planning retreat. She'd gone in with Bryce and stayed in the car for a while after I came out to greet her. Apparently, they didn't notice my phone still recording from the cup holder. And now I had 23 minutes of raw, brutal truth. Her voice, his voice, her laugh, the way she talked about me, like I was some footnote, some boring old pair of slippers she'd outgrown. She told him she felt suffocated by decency, and that I was predictable, like a calendar. She said she admired my loyalty but didn't desire it. Said she wanted passion, danger, fire. Fire. That word played on loop in my head like a curse. So while she cried on the other side of the apartment door the next morning, begging me to at least talk like adults, I sat inside at my desk uploading the audio file to 3 different cloud drives. I sent copies to my lawyer, my brother, and to myself with scheduled delivery. I wasn't going to expose it yet. No, that would be too easy, too clean. And I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done, not just to me, but to everyone who believed in us. At 9:42 a.m., her mother called. Apparently, she had rushed to her parents' house in tears after I blocked her number and turned off the shared bank notifications. Her mom was always cold with me, always acting like I wasn't successful enough, wasn't dynamic. But now she was suddenly warm. Now she wanted to understand. I didn't answer. By noon, Bryce called me. Yes, he had the audacity. Hey man, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Wrong foot. I nearly smashed the phone in my hand. I didn't speak. I just let him ramble for 45 seconds before hanging up mid-sentence. And then I packed. 1 suitcase, my documents, my external drive, my passport, and I left. But I didn't disappear completely. Not yet. I let her stew in it. For days, I didn't respond to messages. I didn't show up to my job. I had already filed for emergency leave. My boss, a kind woman named Patrice who always looked out for me, said I could take all the time I needed. And while she thought I was vanishing, licking my wounds somewhere, I was meeting with a friend of mine who worked in corporate PR. Because if you think betrayal is personal, imagine what it looks like when it goes public. You see, the yoga studio wasn't just a place for stretching and soul talk. It was a brand. And Bryce? He wasn't just some random investor. He was married. Oh yeah, a whole wife and 2 kids in Oregon. And I had just found her. I found her the old-fashioned way, on Facebook. Bryce's wife. Her name was Noelle Whitmore, and she looked exactly like the kind of woman my wife always mocked. Conservative. Sweet. Had a baking blog with barely 200 followers and a pinned post about homemade granola for busy moms. Harmless. Naive. She didn't know. God, she had no idea. And part of me didn't want to be the one to break it. But then I thought about my wife's voice in that recording. The way she moaned his name in my car. The way she whispered that she wished she could just fast forward through the boring marriage part. That she was tired of playing loyal. I sent Noelle an email. Short. Polite. Contained a Dropbox link. No explanation. Just said, I believe this involves your husband and mine. She replied 10 hours later. At first, just 1 word. Listening. Then 10 minutes passed. Then 2 more words. Oh my God. Then silence. I didn't push her. I didn't need to. She reached out again 3 days later, asked to meet. We agreed to keep things quiet. She was more scared than angry. I understood that too well. Shock keeps you numb for a while. Then it sharpens into fury. You just have to wait. While all this was unfolding, my wife had completely lost control. She was texting me every morning, long messages, voice notes, sometimes crying, sometimes threatening, sometimes pretending nothing happened. I ignored every single one. I wasn't being cruel. I was giving her space to dig her own grave. And she did. See, the thing about lies is that they multiply when you're desperate. She had told her friends that I had an episode at the rehearsal dinner, that I was unstable, that I imagined things, that we had been on a break. But when her maid of honor called me behind her back to ask why I had canceled the venue, I sent her the audio. She didn't reply either. Within 48 hours, 3 people backed out of the wedding party. 2 of her cousins unfollowed her on Instagram. The yoga studio's Instagram turned comments off. And suddenly, the golden couple image she'd worked so hard to build started crumbling faster than she could manage. But the best part? She still didn't know I'd met with Bryce's wife. She still thought she was the only one scrambling. Noelle and I had one quiet lunch at a small cafe just outside the city. She brought a manila folder full of printouts, texts, receipts, hotel bookings. It was worse than I imagined. They had been at it for almost 9 months. Planned retreats together. Lied to their families. Even made a shared Google Doc full of cover stories. My wife used to complain she was bad at planning. But with him, she planned betrayal like it was a team project. I didn't cry at that meeting. Neither did Noelle. We just sat across from each other like two casualties of a war we never enlisted in. She asked what I wanted to do. I said, nothing. Not yet. Because here's the thing. Sometimes revenge is letting the world turn just enough for your enemy to hang themselves with their own rope. And my wife? She had just grabbed the first knot. It was almost poetic, how it unfolded. She begged for a second chance one last time through email. Yes, email, like we were co-workers and not two people who once shared a toothbrush holder. The subject line just said, please. The body was a wall of desperate words, apologies, explanations, questions, accusations, half-promises that she could fix everything if I'd just show up to her clarity ceremony at the studio. Whatever the hell that was supposed to mean. I didn't reply, but I did show up. Not for her. For the final push. They were hosting some rebranding livestream that weekend. A healing event for their social media followers. The irony didn't even need commentary. The studio had invited an audience in person, too. About 30 people. Mostly women in overpriced activewear and a few wannabe spiritual influencers clutching crystal water bottles. She was dressed in white, barefoot, her hair in some fake boho braid that made her look like she was trying out for a cult. Bryce was there too. Of course. Their chairs were placed side by side in front of a hanging white curtain. Plants, soft lighting, a wooden table with incense. The whole thing reeked of artificial peace. They opened the live stream. The comments started flooding in. Hearts. Namaste emojis. Beautiful couple, someone typed. I stayed behind the camera setup in the back. I had a friend on the tech crew, someone who owed me a favor from years ago. And thanks to him, I was watching more than the live stream. I was watching the audio feeds. And one mic, Bryce's, was still hot during their break. Not just hot. Live. Sending a crystal clear feed straight to the laptop my friend was monitoring. That was when he leaned over and whispered to her, right there on stage, just as people were commenting things like, love is in the air. He said, you don't actually think I'm leaving my wife for you, do you? And she laughed. Not nervously. Not quietly. She laughed. Like it was a stupid question. Like she already knew she was just a phase. A thrill. A placeholder. That laugh echoed across the studio room. And because of the open mic, it also echoed straight into the live stream. The comments went from hearts to question marks. One person typed, wait, what was that? Another wrote, is this part of the event? The camera guy didn't catch it, but the audio stayed up for 8 more seconds. Long enough for her to respond with something that made my jaw tighten so hard I thought my teeth might crack. She said, honestly, I just wanted to ruin him first. There was a pause. Bryce said nothing. And then, calmly, he stood up and walked off stage. The curtain swayed slightly as he left, and the stream was cut moments later. But it was too late. The damage was done. Clips were already being downloaded. People were already screen recording. And in that brief glitch in her perfect facade, the world saw the woman I had known behind closed doors. The manipulation, the coldness, the smiling knife. She tried to message me that night. Called over 20 times. Then switched to WhatsApp. Then Gmail again. Why are you doing this to me? That's what she wrote. And I laughed. Because finally, she felt what I had felt. Powerless. Small. Exposed. And I wasn't even close to finished. I didn't expect her to go live the next day. I figured she'd stay quiet. Maybe bury the whole thing under a new post about moon phases or forgiveness crystals. But she didn't. She went full meltdown. 32 minutes of live-streamed panic, trying to clarify the audio from the day before. She said it was taken out of context. She said people don't understand private humor. She said Bryce was emotionally abusive, and she had acted out of pain. Then she started crying. Real tears. The kind of sobs that made her followers flood the comments with prayers and virtual hugs. I almost doubted myself watching it. That's the power she always had. She could make you feel crazy for remembering things exactly how they happened. But this time, she wasn't in control of the edit. The internet moves faster than guilt. By noon, someone had uploaded a clean, uncut version of the audio clip, ripped straight from the stream, no background music, no filters. Just her voice, clear as glass. Honestly, I just wanted to ruin him first. By 3 p.m., a reaction video popped up. By 6, she was trending in a small corner of Yoga Talk under the hashtag spiritual scammer. It should have felt good, but all I felt was empty. And then, something strange happened. I got a call from Bryce's wife. I hadn't heard from Noelle since our cafe meeting. She sounded calm, almost too calm. She said, "I think it's time." I asked her what she meant. She said, "Check your inbox." She had filed for divorce that morning. Quietly, cleanly, with documentation attached, emails, financial records, hotel receipts. She'd CC'd my lawyer. She gave me full permission to submit the files as part of my own separation case. She even offered to testify, if needed. But the final blow wasn't in the documents. It was in the video she included. A home security recording from 3 weeks prior. Bryce, my wife, in Noelle's kitchen, making coffee like it was their house, kissing by the fridge. My wife, wearing one of Noelle's robes. I watched it 3 times. Not because I needed proof, but because I couldn't look away from what betrayal looks like when it thinks it's safe. They had been reckless, careless, comfortable. They had forgotten that people outside their bubble existed. People with eyes, with ears, with memories. So I called my lawyer. He said, "Are you ready to burn it all down?" I said no. Then I paused. "I'm ready to walk away while it burns behind me. Because that's the part no one warns you about. Sometimes, revenge isn't loud. Sometimes, it's just the sound of a closing door they never get to open again." She always believed she could talk her way out of anything. And for a long time, she could. That was her gift, or maybe her weapon. She never yelled, never fought dirty. She just twisted things subtly, reshaped reality in front of you until you questioned whether you were overreacting. But this time, there was too much truth bleeding through the cracks. After the failed livestream apology and the kitchen video leak, she went silent for 3 days. No posts, no responses. The studio's website went offline. I figured maybe she finally got it, maybe it was over. Then I got the text. It came in at 2:17 a.m. The exact time she used to roll over and press her cold feet against mine under the blankets. This time, instead of warmth, all I got was a screen that read, "You've humiliated me. You never loved me. You just waited to destroy me." I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. Just let the words hang there. But the thing is, I didn't destroy her. She did that all by herself. It was her maid of honor, of all people, who went public next. A Reddit thread. Anonymous, but obvious. Title: I was supposed to stand beside her at the altar until I found out who she really was. It was brutal. Raw. It detailed everything. The rehearsal dinner, the mic slip, the hotel weekends she bragged about during their girls' nights. And worst of all, how she admitted she never wanted to get married, that she just liked the aesthetic of being a bride. The post went viral. Screenshots flew around Facebook. Her followers turned on her overnight. Women she had mentored at the studio, women who once called her a role model, started posting their own stories. Apparently, mine wasn't the first relationship she'd invaded. There were others. She was just better at hiding them back then. I didn't comment. I didn't share. I just watched it unfold. I'd already moved out. I'd already transferred my savings, filed the papers, left the key under the ceramic frog by the front door. That was the part that really made her spiral, that I didn't fight for her, that I didn't scream or beg or demand closure. I just vanished from the life she thought I'd always orbit. But I wasn't orbiting anymore. I was out of her gravity. The last time I saw her was 2 weeks after the Reddit post. I was picking up a box of old books from our mutual friend's house, neutral ground. She showed up, uninvited. No makeup, hair unwashed. Her voice cracked when she said my name. She asked if we could just talk. Just once. I said, "There's nothing left to say." And she nodded like she understood. But her eyes didn't. Her eyes still searched for the man who used to forgive everything. The man who once waited for her outside in the snow with flowers because she said she had a bad day. The man who would have taken her back. But that man was gone. All that was left was me. Not perfect, not whole, but free. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after a storm like that. Not peace exactly, more like stillness. The kind where you realize the chaos has stopped, not because it resolved, but because it burned itself out. That's what life felt like a month after the divorce was finalized. She didn't contest anything. I think by then she knew there was no spinning out of it. Too many eyes had seen who she really was. Her studio shut down. Bryce moved back in with his wife, for now, at least, though I doubt that house ever really recovered either. From what I hear, his wife made him sleep in the guest room, and he's been rebuilding trust through marriage counseling and weekly childcare duty. Honestly, I hope she never forgives him. He deserves to live in the shadow of what he almost lost. As for my ex-wife, she moved out of state. Some tiny town out west where no one knew her name. No one asked about live streams or Reddit threads. One of her former students messaged me that she's teaching private sessions again. Good. Let her rebuild from the ground up, the way she left me. But me? I started living again. And I don't mean that in the fake. I went to a beach and drank mojitos kind of way. I mean, I stopped checking her socials. I stopped replaying the audio at night. I stopped pretending I didn't miss her, and then, eventually, I stopped missing her at all. I started running again. Bought a used guitar. Found a little bookstore job part-time just for the peace of it. And one morning, while standing in line at a tiny cafe I'd never been to before, I met someone. Her name was Janessa. She made a joke about the barista taking too long to pour a single black coffee. I laughed, a real laugh, not the broken one I had gotten used to faking. We started talking. She asked what I did. I told her, honestly, I'm figuring that out. She smiled and said, me too. And for once, that wasn't scary. It was honest. We're not rushing anything. I'm not posting pictures. I'm not defining anything too quickly. But we've had dinner, walked by the lake, talked about music and grief and weird dreams. And sometimes, when she laughs at something I say, really laughs, I catch myself smiling for no reason at all. It doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't undo the betrayal. But it reminds me that not all endings are punishments. Some are just doors. And the best ones? They lead you right into a life you didn't know was waiting for you.